All right, so we got a little bull session here with the Trib sports guys, Chad and John, alongside me. Gentlemen, how are y'all doing?
Good.
Really
good. So
ready for summer?
Heck yeah!
Are you ready for summer, Mr. Sports Editor?
Absolutely. You and I were talking about it, that Memorial Day is kind of almost like the finish line, and it's approaching. So
right.
I like that.
John, so you got to cover MCC baseball these past couple weeks, I guess, and
yeah,
making a nice run to the juco-world-series in Grand Junction, which you covered back in the day, right?
Back in 83. Almost 40 years ago. And I saw him win a national championship.
That's pretty
Some
cool.
guy named Jay Buhner was on the team.
Yeah, he was pretty good.
When you think about it, John, it's possible that some of the parents of the current MCC players weren't born yet when you cover that 83 series.
Well, I think some of these guys could be grandparents who are on that team.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
For sure.
I'm that old.
So John, is this team capable of doing what that 80-3 team did?
I think so. I mean, they're coming in on an 18-game winning streak,
right?
Which is pretty hard to do in baseball. Now, that 83 team had a 25-game winning streak at one point. It wasn't right at the end of the year like this one. But yeah, gosh, they've got 7 starters hitting over 300. And the guys who aren't hitting over 300, they've really been getting clutch hits. And they've got 4 guys with double-figure homers. And I think probably the biggest thing, they've got a really deep pitching staff. They've got 3 good starters, but they can bring in all kinds of guys from the bullpen. And, especially if you get in the loser's bracket of one of these tournaments, you're probably going to need all of those guys. And, but yeah, they're really good. I like their chances. Now, they're the number 4 seed. They're behind Crowder. Shelton
Crowder. He's a worship leader.
Yeah, the David Crowder band has a heck of a baseball team.
Scraggly looking, but go on. What did you say?
John doesn't know what we're talking about.
Anyway, San Jack is the number 3 seed, and MCC's 4. And MCC will play a team from South Carolina. Let's see, Darlington.
Yeah, Darlington.
Anyway, yeah.
It's like Darlington or something.
Yeah. Anyway, MCC played them the first game of the 2017 tournament, JUCO tournament, and they beat them 10-1. So they know a little bit about that program anyway. But yeah, I like it, especially the way they're playing.
So I'm following a baseball team that's going in a little bit different direction. I would say, a couple weeks ago, if you'd asked me, if Baylor baseball was in the NCAA tournament, I said, sure, yeah, absolutely. Pretty much a sure bet. And now I think they're a little bit more of a bubble team. The D1 baseball projections had them as the 64th team. So just squeaking in. Baseball America had them as a 3 seed in a regional. So, I think it would help them if they did something this week at the Big 12 tournament. And yet that's not going to be easy. They start off with Chad Conine's Texas Tech Red Raiders tomorrow. Now, they played well in Lubbock. Baylor did. But here's the problem. Bears are going to be without at least 2 of their pitchers, their starting pitchers. Tyler Thomas still out for what they call health and safety protocols, but you can read between the lines, and say COVID, on that. And then Blake Helton, who maybe had his turning point of the season in Lubbock.
Those are the two guys that won games 1 and 3.
Yeah, he's
right?
out as well. So they will be starting a freshman left-hander who's kind of a two-way player, Cam Cayley, tomorrow on the mound against the Red Raiders. And so I don't know, I still feel like when it's all said and done that Baylor could and should be in the field, but we'll see.
Well, couple of points here, maybe multiple points here. I always hesitate to say, this team's going to get smoked or whatever. And I wouldn't say that, about this matchup or whatever, but Tech's coming in with some pretty good vibes. Conference player of the year. Your coach has a new lifetime contract. Now, the other side of that is Tech has lost so many Friday night games this year. And this is kind of like the tournament version of a Friday night game. So that's like point number one. Point number two is that how do we feel about Big 12? I mean, about conference tournaments in general, basketball or baseball, but especially baseball. And a week ago, we were saying, there wasn't a team that could play their way into the tournament. Oklahoma didn't have enough pitching. Actually, at this point, Baylor probably doesn't have enough pitching. But I mean, is it kind of a moot point, this tournament?
Not for everybody. I mean, I think, obviously it's just like basketball, where for certain teams, it may be your only option to getting into the NCAA tournament. I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying, though. I mean, do you think Baylor or Oklahoma have the pitching to get through this tournament?
Unlikely. I would say unlikely. OU is a weird team, though. For one, they're, OU and OSU always have the biggest crowds at Bricktown naturally. And so that's an advantage. They usually, because of that, and because the Big 12 wants to maximize the crowds that are there, they will usually get the night spots in the tournament, to kind of maximize the crowds. And
so is there a number of fans that Oklahoma can get in the stands that will help them to not walk guys and hit guys?
Look, they've got some arms. They're just not consistent. So Can they find their consistency over these next few days? We'll see. What they can do is hit the ever-living crap out of the ball. They've got 4 guys with double-digit home runs, a guy that hit 400 on the season, and Tyler Hardman, their first baseman. So they can hit their way probably to a Big 12 tournament title. But you do need pitching to win one of these things. And so they're going to have one of those guys step up. The guy that pitched the finale, Jake Bennett, for the Sooners in the Baylor series, he came in with like a 6.75 ERA, and he shut Baylor down. So, it can happen, but I'm with you, Chad. I wouldn't say that either Baylor or OU are likely to kind of put together one of those runs, but again,
strange things happen at tournaments for sure, and in baseball tournaments in particular.
Yeah.
And also, let's not go past this subject before we talk about the fact that Texas Tech has their basketball coach hired away from them. So what is
which we're not bitter about at all, right?
I mean, I've made my peace with it. He's not a good person. He's pretty sleazy. I've heard things about the way things went down that would cause me to get possibly a libel suit if I were to mention them on this podcast. And then I guess not libel. I guess it would be defamation or slander, since we're not writing down the podcast.
Sure.
But
Chad, you really are good at biting your tongue. I will say that.
I'm not known for that.
Oh well.
So then, like 7 weeks later, I guess, or give or take a few days, A&M fires their baseball coach, and they start looking over, at Texas Tech's baseball coach. And it's like, okay, anytime Texas Tech wins at something, or do we just have to like surrender the fact that somebody's going to come get our coach, right? Well, Tim Tadlock and Kirby Hocutt put an end to that talk yesterday. Lifetime contract. I think when the Mulkey stuff came up the other day or a couple weeks ago, Mac Rose doesn't like lifetime contracts. I think it came out, in sort of that discussion. How do you guys feel about lifetime contracts?
Johnny? Oh, I will say they usually don't last a lifetime. I think a lot of it is show. And a lot of it is to show your alumni that you're making a move to support the program, the school. But I don't think anything's a lifetime. In reality.
This is not really what you asked, but so sports contracts get criticized all the time. People criticize these athletes, especially in the pros, for making too much money, and I always feel like that's overblown. If the market is there, they're going to get paid what the market bears. But I don't know if y'all saw this today. Guy Fieri from the Food Network signed a 3-year, $80 million extension with the Food Network. The mayor of Flavortown.
That more than anything tells us where our country is at. That Guy Fieri is worth $80 million to go on TV and tell people what food tastes good.
Yep. So more power to him. I just want to join the mayor of Flavortown's cabinet and see if he'll get me a well-compensated position.
Now, here's my take on the lifetime contract thing. On a rolling contract, you keep your coach paid among the top 3 or 4 coaches in the country. Now, that's a pretty smart move. And anybody that's going to come, try to steal your coach away knows they got to pay him as much as anybody's making in the country.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet deal for sure.
It's good.
Yeah, and smart by Tech to do it, honestly, even though it's going to cost them a lot of money. Before Tadlock arrived, they had kind of been in a little bit of a lull in terms of that program. So, reward the guy that's getting it done. That's what I say. One last topic before we kind of get out of here. We've all got stories to work on and stuff, but Chad, Lady Bears, since Nicki Collen has arrived, she's been assembling that staff. And of course, one of the names that, generated some buzz just because she's pretty well known in Waco in this program is Sophia-Young-Malcolm. What did you think about that hire and pretty good addition?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, I'll be, finding out more and letting our readers know more this weekend. I've got interview set up to do a profile on her on our Texas Sports Hall of Fame series. Of course, Brice, you being on the board of that knows that she's going into the Texas Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
this year in September, right?
For a number of years. I mean, to me, because one time Brittany Griner came up in our nomination meeting or something, and I was like, look, we cannot put Brittany in before Sophia Young because, she was, for lack of a better way to put it, Brittany before Brittany. She was Mulkey's first, All-American caliber player.
Yeah, I think you could probably look at every great program and say, here's the first player that this was all built around. Like RG3 has a statue at McLean Stadium. Why? Because whatever they did in the next decade after that was built on him being, their guy at that point. And, you could just go great program and point towards, that player. So, And, you know, she's going to be like a player development person and almost kind of a liaison between the girls on the team and, you know, their stuff in the community and with the university. And so she's not necessarily an X's and O's hire, but, you know, just a person who is a face of the program and is a great face of the program. You know, I think one of the things about her in 2005 that I kind of observed, not being the beat writer at that time, but was that she just is a real class act of a person. And I think, you know, that was important. And that's always important to have, you know, there's enough rough characters in sports that you want kind of your original group to have some of that, you know, that personality and that kind of, I don't know, as much as Charles Barkley didn't want to be a role model, you know, those role model types are nice.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's smart that, you know, a lot of times when a new coach comes in with a lot of new people, you know, they can be almost viewed a little bit for a while as sort of outsiders, you know, I mean, and like when Matt Rule came into Baylor, one of the things that a lot of people talked about was, oh, he's got no Texas ties. How's he going to recruit Texas? And that's always like a topic that comes up if you're at a school in Texas and you hire for someone from outside of Texas. And I thought Matt Rule was very wise to hire a couple of guys like Sean Bell and Joey McGuire, who coached high school football in Texas and know the state and know the coaches. And so to me, this is that kind of hire for Nicki Collen. You know, she's a non-Baylor person and has never coached in this state. And so what does she do? She hires, you know, one of the best Lady Bear players ever. And I think that kind of bridges that gap a little bit of that sort of outsider type feel, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to ask Sophia, is she and Colin have ties from the WNBA? I don't know if their WNBA careers overlapped in terms of Colin coaching and Young playing, but that'll be an interesting thing to, you know, doesn't have much to do with her profile for the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, but it will be something interesting to find out about.
So we're going to do these bull sessions from time to time. Before we go, Chad, you hit it on a little bit already. You'll have a story on Sophia coming up for the weekend, but what else are you working on that Trib?
Yeah, so we got
can look for.
We got high school baseball and softball this week. Starting out Wednesday, tomorrow night, we got Crawford Italy softball in Whitney. Mm-hmm. And of course the Italy has a pitcher that I think she struck out 40 batters when they played Bosqueville or something like that per game. Wait.
Yeah, John was
frozen
there for a minute.
Anyway, so that, and then, you know, Crawford's been a powerhouse in softball lately, so that'll be an interesting matchup. And then the Bosqueville baseball team plays Windthorst, I believe, in Weatherford. The Crawford baseball team plays Alvord, maybe, or something. Anyway, they're playing in Brock. So and when I don't know if this is interesting or not to people, but it is kind of. They were going to play in Everman, and Everman said, we're only allowing 25 people in the stands. And so Crawford and whoever they're playing, they were like, well, I guess we're not playing there then. So, you know, a little bit of rebuffing COVID protocols that some schools are wanting to throw out there.
Interesting. Yeah. I saw the tweet about that. John Boy, is he still with us? He still looks a little frozen to me. The Iceman, Johnny Werner. He'll be following MCC baseball, so we'll have stories on that. And I've got, besides Baylor baseball, I'll be following the Baylor track team, who continues its season at the NCAA West prelims this week in College Station. It's essentially the meet that qualifies you for nationals. And we'll also have our Trib all Big 12 baseball team this weekend.
You know, Brice, about 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't need to talk about all the other stuff to fill 20 minutes. We would just list all the things we're covering.
Oh,
and that would have taken
and
20
we've gone
minutes.
on for 2 hours. Yeah, absolutely.
Is Jace Young going to be your Big 12 Player of the Year?
Well, now see, you're
Tipping
doing
your
some
hand?
spoiler things there. I'll say this. So first of all, I start my Big 12 team. I was working on it all last week, maybe the last couple weeks. So it's not just a carbon copy of the Big 12 team. There may be some overlap in some spots, but it's not completely identical in terms of the awards.
Okay, well, I'll just say this then. Go back and see how many categories he led, offensive categories he led the conference in.
I am a big fan of Jace Young. I'll also say this: he's a freshman, and there's an award for freshmen.
I noticed that. He's a COVID freshman.
He is a COVID freshman, but they didn't get to play the Big 12 season last year. So
right, all
of these guys went through their first Big 12 season. So anyway, all right, that's it for us. I think Johnny
he's long gone.
He's long gone.
I'm having some connection problems.
Oh, there he is.
There he is. All right, John. Well, and hey, Chad, I wanted to do one other thing because I just know how much you appreciate this. But today is my dog's 1 year birthday.
It's all about the dog.
Yeah, I was gonna see
right.
I was gonna try to put her on the screen here, but she's not having it. But
our readers are lucky that there's not a weekly "What's going on with Brice's dog" column.
Actually, one of the columns I'm gonna write in the next weeks or months is about dogs' athleticism. So there you go. Anyway, all right, that's it for us. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Johnny,
yeah,
we'll see you. When you have a better connection. So. See y'all.
Thank you.
Later.
Yeah.